You want me to what now? Sarah Chen asked, staring at the holographic display with an expression that suggested she was either suffering from a stroke or had just heard the dumbest thing in the history of the galaxy. The floating blue form of Chief Science Officer Zach Tal rustled his feather-like sensory appendages in what his species considered extreme agitation. Technical Officer Chen, as I explained, we need you to construct an emergency shelter capable of withstanding the local environment. The research team is stranded until the ionic storm passes, and their current position is suboptimal. Sarah pinched the bridge of her nose, a gesture that always fascinated her alien colleagues. Right. And you're telling me this after dropping them on the surface of literal murder world? Classification DC-2187 is not officially designated as murder world. Zach Tal corrected primly. It is simply a Class 12 death world with some minor atmospheric and geological challenges. Minor challenges? Sarah's laugh had the kind of edge that made several of the bridge crew's appendages curl defensively. The atmosphere is basically spicy acid, the ground randomly spews superheated steam, and let's not forget the charming local wildlife that thinks everything is an all-you-can-eat buffet. Which is precisely why we need your expertise, Zach Tal continued, either missing or choosing to ignore her sarcasm. You are, after all, a death worlder yourself. Sarah sighed deeply, already reaching for her emergency kit. You know that's not how it works, right? Being from Earth doesn't automatically make me some kind of survival goddess. We don't all channel Bear Grylls the moment we step onto a hostile planet. I am unfamiliar with this deity you reference, but never mind. Sarah cut him off, already heading for the shuttle bay. Just tell me where exactly our stranded scientists are, and what resources I have to work with. The answer, as it turned out, was huddled in a cave, and practically nothing, respectively. Because of course it was. The shuttle ride down was exactly as terrifying as Sarah expected. The ionic storm that had stranded the research team was still raging in the upper atmosphere, making the descent feel like riding a mechanical bull inside a washing machine. The pilot, a Vraxian named Teklor, whose species resembled a cross between a praying mantis and a jellyfish, was handling it with admirable composure. How did they even end up in this situation? Sarah asked, double-checking the seals on her environment suit for the third time. I thought we had protocols for this kind of thing. Teklor's translator crackled with what might have been embarrassment. The team leader, Dr. Nixel, was very enthusiastic about studying the local geological formations. The storm formed more rapidly than our models predicted. Fantastic, Sarah muttered. A geology nerd with poor impulse control. Just what we needed. The shuttle's sensors picked up the research team's emergency beacon, leading them to a narrow valley between two towering rock formations. The cave turned out to be more of a shallow depression in the cliff face, offering minimal protection from the caustic atmosphere and periodic steam vents. Sarah could see the research team huddled inside their environmental bubbles, standard-issue emergency gear that would keep them alive for about 48 hours. They had already burned through half that time. Right then, Sarah said, mostly to herself as she began unloading her equipment. Time to show these Xenos how humans do emergency shelter building. Teklor, I need you to help me unload these supplies, and then get the shuttle to a safe distance. Those steam vents look like they're building up pressure. The next few hours were a blur of activity that had the stranded research team watching in fascination. Sarah's primitive approach to survival shelter construction was apparently quite the spectacle. Dr. Nixel, a floating gas bag creature that reminded Sarah of a bioluminescent octopus, kept making excited notes on their datapad. Fascinating. The Death Worlder is utilizing basic tools to manipulate the environment. Look at how she's analyzing the rock formation patterns to predict steam vent locations. I can hear you, you know, Sarah grunted, as she finished securing the foundation of what would become their shelter. And I'd appreciate it if you'd stop narrating like I'm some kind of Discovery Channel special. Discovery Channel? One of the junior researchers inquired. Earth Entertainment Programming, Sarah explained, wiping caustic sweat from her faceplate. Humans filming other humans doing exactly this kind of thing, usually with a lot more drama and way less actual danger. The aliens exchanged confused looks, their various appendages twitching in bewilderment. The concept of voluntarily filming survival situations for entertainment seemed to break their brains a little. Sarah had chosen their new shelter location carefully, a spot where two massive rock formations created a natural windbreak, with a slight overhang that would help deflect the worst of the acid rain. The ground here was stable, with no signs of the steam vent activity that made much of the surface so treacherous. Using a combination of local materials and the emergency supplies she'd brought, Sarah began construction of what she mentally dubbed humanity's middle finger to certain death. The basic structure was simple enough. A reinforced frame anchored deep into the bedrock, with multiple layers of protective shielding. Remarkable, Dr. Nixel continued their running commentary. Notice how she's incorporating the natural features of the environment into the design. Such resourcefulness. It's called working with what you've got, Sarah replied, now laying down the first layer of acid-resistant sheeting. Also, instead of taking notes, you could help by holding this end down before the wind turns it into a very expensive kite. The research team, despite their obvious fascination with her primitive methods, proved to be surprisingly helpful once they got over their initial shock. Even their various non-humanoid anatomies found ways to assist with the construction. Several hours and many close calls with steam vents later, the shelter was taking shape. Sarah had to admit it was probably one of her better jobs considering the circumstances. The structure was solid, well-insulated, and most importantly, not about to dissolve in the acid atmosphere or get blown away by the savage winds. I must admit, Dr. Nixel said, their bioluminescent patterns pulsing with what Sarah had learned to recognize as excitement. When they said they were sending a human to help us, I was skeptical. Your species' reputation for solving problems through brute force and improvisation seemed ill-suited for our situation. Sarah snorted as she finished sealing the last panel. Let me guess, you expected some kind of high-tech solution? Force fields and energy matrices? Well, yes, the alien scientist admitted. Your approach seems so primitive, Sarah suggested dryly. Basic, Dr. Nixel finished diplomatically, and yet it is undeniably effective. That's humanity in a nutshell, Sarah said, stepping back to admire her handiwork. We might not have the most elegant solutions, but we've got millions of years of evolution screaming "don't die" in our heads. Makes us pretty good at staying alive in places that want to kill us. The shelter, now complete, looked like what might happen if a military bunker had a baby with a greenhouse and raised it on a steady diet of paranoia. Multiple layers of protective materials created a tough outer shell, while the interior was surprisingly spacious and well-organized. Sarah had even managed to rig up a basic air filtration system using some of the research team's equipment combined with emergency supplies. The ionic storm should pass within the next 36 hours, Dr. Nixel said, their tentacles wrapping around a sensor array. This shelter will more than suffice until then. Good, Sarah replied, finally allowing herself to relax slightly. Because I don't fancy building another one. By the way, what was so important about these geological formations that you just had to study them during storm season? Dr. Nixel's bioluminescence flickered in what might have been embarrassment. We discovered traces of what appears to be artificial construction within the rock layers. Something that predates any known civilization in this sector. Sarah blinked. You're telling me there are ancient alien ruins here? On Murder World? Classification DC 22187, Dr. Nixel corrected automatically. And yes, though ruins might be an overstatement. The evidence suggests this planet was once different, less hostile. Something changed it, deliberately and dramatically, approximately 50,000 years ago. Sarah looked out through the shelter's reinforced viewport at the hellish landscape beyond. Someone turned this place into a death world on purpose? Why would anyone do that? That, Dr. Nixel said, their lights pulsing with scientific excitement, is exactly what we're trying to find out. The next day and a half passed in a blur of scientific discussion and increasingly wild theories about the planet's mysterious past. Sarah found herself drawn into the researchers' enthusiasm, despite her initial annoyance at having to rescue them. There was something compelling about the idea of an ancient civilization capable of transforming entire worlds. The research team turned out to be surprisingly good company once they stopped treating her like a specimen to be studied. They shared stories of their own worlds, their different perspectives on the universe, and their theories about what might have happened to DC 2187's mysterious former inhabitants. Even the periodic tests of their shelter's integrity by the planet's hostile environment became opportunities for scientific observation. Sarah had to admit, watching steam vents erupt through her carefully constructed viewing ports was pretty impressive, especially when she wasn't actively trying to avoid being cooked alive by them. When the ionic storm finally passed and the rescue shuttle arrived, Sarah was almost disappointed to leave. Almost. Technical Officer Chen, Dr. Nixel called as she was preparing to board the shuttle. We would very much appreciate your continued assistance with our research. Sarah turned, raising an eyebrow behind her faceplate. You want me to stick around? I thought you had all the high-tech equipment you needed. The alien scientist's bioluminescence flickered in what she now recognized as amusement. We have discovered that sometimes, as you humans say, basic approaches have their advantages. Besides, someone needs to build our permanent research station. Sarah looked at the shelter she'd constructed, then at the hellish landscape around them, and finally at the eager alien researchers. A grin spread across her face. Well, she said, I suppose someone has to keep you lot from getting yourselves killed while you chase your ancient mysteries. But we're going to need a bigger shelter, and better tools, and maybe some big guns, just in case whatever changed this place into Murder World decides to come back for a visit. Classification DC 22187. Dr. Nixel corrected automatically, then paused. Though perhaps Murder World does have a certain descriptive accuracy to it. See? Sarah laughed. You're learning already. Back on the orbital station, Chief Science Officer Zek Tal reviewed the incident report with what his species considered profound satisfaction. His sensory appendages quivered as he made his final notation. While Technical Officer Chen's methods may seem unorthodox by galactic standard protocols, her success rate cannot be disputed. Recommendation: expand the human approach to crisis response training program. Note: perhaps there is something to be said for their primitive solutions after all. He paused, then added one final line. Additional note: suggest updating classification DC 2187's unofficial designation in the database to include the human term Murder World for accuracy in field communications. Somewhere on the planet below, a steam vent erupted near the newly constructed shelter, its caustic spray harmlessly deflected by Sarah's primitive engineering. Inside, a team of alien scientists continued their work, protected by nothing more complicated than clever design and sturdy materials. Proof that sometimes the old ways were the best ways. And if anyone noticed that the shelter's external cameras occasionally caught glimpses of strange lights in the distance, or that the planet's geological activity seemed to follow patterns just a bit too regular to be natural, well, that was a mystery for another day. After all, as Sarah liked to say, you couldn't solve all of Murder World's mysteries in one day. Sometimes you had to take things one steam vent at a time. That's the third anomaly this week, Sarah said, frowning at the sensor readings. Either our equipment is malfunctioning, or something out there is generating energy signatures that definitely shouldn't exist on a planet this hostile. Dr. Nixel's tentacles writhed in what Sarah had learned to interpret as scientific excitement. The pattern recognition algorithms confirm it. These energy spikes correlate perfectly with the geological formations we've been studying. 3 months had passed since the emergency shelter incident, as the station's official records labeled it. In that time, Sarah had overseen the construction of a permanent research base that she'd nicknamed Fort Improbable. The facility was a testament to human engineering principles meeting alien technology, robust enough to withstand Murder World's attempts to kill them all, yet sophisticated enough to support the research team's delicate equipment. You know what this means, don't you? Sarah asked, zooming in on the latest sensor data. Those aren't natural formations we've been studying. They're ruins. Actually, scratch that. They're still active. The alien scientist's bioluminescence pulsed rapidly. Active? After 50,000 years? That's impossible by any known technological standard. Apparently nobody told them that, Sarah replied dryly. Look at these energy signatures. They're following a cycle, and it's speeding up. Before Dr. Nixel could respond, the base's warning system activated. Red lights began pulsing throughout the facility as the AI's calm voice announced. Warning. Anomalous geological activity detected. All personnel proceed to designated safety zones. Oh, that's not good, Sarah muttered, already moving to the main control console. That's really not good at all. The sensor array was lighting up like a Christmas tree. Steam vents that had maintained predictable patterns for months were suddenly going haywire. The caustic atmosphere outside seemed to be getting even more aggressive, if that was possible. Dr. Nixel, Sarah called out as she worked to reinforce the base's shields. Remember how I said we might need those big guns just in case? I'm starting to think that wasn't just paranoia talking. The alien scientist had moved to another console, their tentacles flying over the controls. The energy signatures are cascading. It's as if the planet itself is waking up. Yeah, well, I vote we don't stick around to say good morning, Sarah replied. She hit the base-wide comm system. All personnel, This is Technical Officer Chen. We're initiating emergency evacuation procedures. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. But even as she gave the order, Sarah knew it wouldn't be that simple. The same ionic interference that had stranded the research team during their first expedition was back, and this time, it was orders of magnitude stronger. Orbital communications are being blocked, one of the junior researchers reported, their crystalline form vibrating with anxiety. "We can't reach the station!" "Of course we can't," Sarah sighed, "because that would be too easy." She turned to Dr. Nixel. "Remember how you said something changed this planet 50,000 years ago? I think we're about to find out what, or who, did it." The ground beneath the base began to tremble. Through the reinforced windows, Sarah could see strange lights beginning to pulse beneath the planet's surface, visible through the network of steam vents and fissures they'd been studying. "Well," she said, reaching for her emergency kit, "I don't know about you lot, but I'm not about to let 50,000 years of dramatic buildup end with us hiding in our bunker. Dr. Nixel, grab your scanning equipment. We're going to go say hello to whatever's waking up." The alien scientist's bioluminescence flickered rapidly. "You want to go outside? Now?" "Technically, no," Sarah admitted. "What I want is to be safely back on the station drinking whatever passes for coffee in the mess hall. But since that's not an option, we might as well satisfy our scientific curiosity before whatever's happening either kills us or makes for one hell of a research paper." The research team exchanged looks of mixed terror and excitement. Sarah had learned that despite their cautious nature, most xenoscientists had a streak of curiosity that bordered on suicidal. It was probably why they got along with humans so well. "Besides," she added, checking the seals on her environment suit, "I didn't spend 3 months building this place just to watch it get destroyed by some ancient planetary defense system or whatever this turns out to be. If something's going to try to kill us, I'd like to at least know why." 20 minutes later, a small team consisting of Sarah, Dr. Nixel, and 2 other researchers was making their way across the hazardous landscape toward the strongest energy signature. The ground continued to shake intermittently, and the steam vents were behaving even more erratically than usual. "These readings are impossible," one of the researchers, a quantum phase being named YX, declared. Their crystalline form sparkled with agitation. "The energy output we're detecting would be enough to power a small star." "And yet here we are," Sarah replied, carefully picking her way around a particularly active steam vent, walking toward it like the protagonists in every bad horror movie ever made. "Horror movie?" Dr. Nixel inquired. "Human entertainment where people make terrible decisions and then die horribly," Sarah explained. "Usually after splitting up or investigating strange noises." "Ah," the alien scientist's tentacles curled thoughtfully. "Like our educational simulations about proper safety protocols?" "Sure," Sarah agreed, trying not to laugh. "Let's go with that." They were approaching what appeared to be a large rock formation, one they'd studied extensively over the past months. Except now it was glowing with an inner light that pulsed in time with the ground tremors. "Well," Sarah said, staring at the increasingly obvious artificial structure, "I guess this answers the question about whether we were dealing with natural formations." The rock was transforming before their eyes. Sections were shifting, revealing metallic surfaces underneath the geological camouflage. Lines of light traced patterns that were definitely not natural, forming complex geometric designs that hurt Sarah's eyes if she looked at them too long. "It appears to be some kind of control center," Dr. Nixel observed, their scientific enthusiasm apparently overwhelming their sense of self-preservation. "The energy patterns suggest—" Whatever the energy patterns suggested was cut off by a sudden, deafening hum that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The ground stopped shaking, and for a moment, everything went completely still. Then a voice spoke, not in any language Sarah recognized, but somehow she could understand it anyway. From the way the others reacted, they could too. "Quarantine protocol Alpha 7 status, active. Time elapsed, 50,000 standard cycles. Containment, stable. Detected presence of Category 7 technological civilization. Initiating first contact protocols." "Oh," Sarah said weakly. "It's an automated system." "Because of course it is." She turned to Dr. Nixel. "Any chance your species has protocols for first contact with ancient planetary defense systems?" The alien scientist's bioluminescence had taken on a pattern Sarah had never seen before. This is unprecedented. The system must have transformed the planet into a death world as part of some kind of quarantine measure." "Correct," the voice confirmed. "This facility was established to contain an outbreak of universe-threatening proportions. The hostile environment was necessary to prevent contamination." Sarah raised her hand, feeling slightly ridiculous about using classroom etiquette with an ancient AI. Quick question. Is this outbreak still a threat? Because if it is, we should probably leave, like right now. There was a pause, during which Sarah could have sworn she heard something like ancient machinery thinking. Negative. Containment was successful. Threat has been neutralized. Maintaining quarantine protocols was deemed prudent until sufficient technological advancement was detected to ensure safe disclosure. And our little research base qualified as sufficient technological advancement? Sarah couldn't keep the skepticism out of her voice. Negative. Detected integration of multiple technological approaches and species. Cooperation indicated civilization maturity. Primitive yet effective survival strategies combined with advanced scientific methodology suggested balanced development. Dr. Nixel's tentacles were practically tying themselves in knots with excitement. It was watching us, studying our responses. Yeah, Sarah said. That's not creepy at all. She addressed the AI directly. So what happens now? You just turn off the murder world settings and we all go home? Negative. Environmental modifications are permanent. However, access to facility archives and technological database now granted. Warning. Some information remains classified due to potential hazard level. Sarah looked at Dr. Nixel, then at the other researchers, who were all displaying their species equivalent of stunned excitement. Let me get this straight, she said slowly. We've just been granted access to the scientific database of a civilization advanced enough to transform entire planets and create containment systems that last for 50,000 years? Correct. And all because we built a really good bunker and didn't die? Correct. Survival capabilities combined with scientific curiosity and interspecies cooperation were key evaluation metrics. Sarah couldn't help it. She started laughing. Oh, this is going to make one hell of a research paper. Dr. Nixel's bioluminescence was practically strobing. Think of the implications, the scientific advancement possibilities, the massive amount of paperwork we're going to have to file? Sarah suggested. The years of cataloging and studying whatever's in that database? The fact that we're probably going to need a bigger research facility? Correct on all counts. The AI seemed almost amused. Recommend beginning with files regarding environmental adaptation technologies. Current facility will require significant upgrades. Sarah sighed, already mentally designing the expansions they'd need. Right, because apparently building one research base on Murder World wasn't enough. Now I get to build another one. She paused. At least this time we'll have access to the instruction manual. The ground trembled again, but this time it felt almost like laughter. High above them, in orbit, Chief Science Officer Zach Tal was about to receive a very interesting report, and perhaps regret his earlier comments about primitive solutions. After all, it wasn't every day that human engineering and alien science accidentally unlocked the secrets of an ancient civilization. But that was a problem for another day. Right now, Sarah had a research base to upgrade, a database of impossible technology to help catalog, and a very strange entry to add to her work log. Day 94 on Murder World. Made first contact with ancient planetary AI. Good news. No galaxy-ending plague. Bad news. More construction work ahead. Note to self. Next time, double-check planet classification before accepting assignment. You know what would have been really helpful? Sarah asked, staring at the holographic blueprint floating in front of her. If our ancient AI friend had mentioned that its instruction manual would be written in 5-dimensional quantum mathematics. Dr. Nixel's tentacles waved in what might have been sympathy or amusement. After 6 months on Murder World, Sarah still had trouble telling the difference. The translation matrices are making progress. We've successfully decoded approximately 0.003% of the database. Fantastic, Sarah muttered. At this rate, we'll understand how to build the new facility sometime in the next century. She gestured at the complex diagram. I mean, look at this. According to these specs, some of these materials don't even exist in our current understanding of physics. The alien scientist's bioluminescence pulsed excitedly. Precisely. The implications for materials science alone are revolutionary. Did you know that the current facility's outer shell is actually a form of programmable matter? The AI has been subtly modifying its structure this entire time. Sarah blinked. Wait, what? Are you telling me my building has been evolving? Correct! The AI's voice chimed in, making both of them jump. Despite months of interaction, they still hadn't gotten used to its habit of joining conversations uninvited. Structural optimization based on environmental stress patterns and observed usage requirements was deemed efficient. A little warning would have been nice, Sarah grumbled. Any other surprises I should know about? Is the coffee maker going to achieve sentience next? There was a pause that lasted just long enough to be concerning. Negative. Beverage dispensation units remain non-sentient. However, facility adaptation has reached Stage 2. Recommend beginning Phase 1 of expansion project. Dr. Nixel's tentacles curled with interest. Stage 2. You haven't mentioned stages before. Information release calibrated to match comprehension levels. Sufficient understanding of basic principles now achieved. Proceeding with advanced concepts. Sarah pinched the bridge of her nose. So you've been, what, teaching us gradually? Like some kind of ancient alien kindergarten teacher? Analogy partially accurate. Preferred designation. Adaptive learning protocol. Right, Sarah sighed. Because that's so much better. She turned to Dr. Nixel. I don't suppose any of that 0.003% we've decoded includes instructions for building matter replicators? Because I have a feeling we're going to need them. Actually, the alien scientist's bioluminescence took on a pattern Sarah recognized as about to drop a bombshell. According to our latest translations, we already have one. Sarah stared at them. We what now? Correct, the AI interjected. Basic matter manipulation unit installed during last maintenance cycle, awaiting activation command. Last maintenance? Sarah's eyes widened. The power fluctuation last week? When the lights flickered and everyone thought it was just another steam vent disruption? Correct. And you didn't mention this because... Query. Would immediate disclosure of advanced technology installation have improved operational efficiency? Sarah opened her mouth to say yes, then closed it as she actually thought about it. Given how the research team tended to react to new discoveries, knowing about a matter replicator would have completely derailed their ongoing work. Fine, she conceded. Point taken. So where is this matter manipulation unit? The wall beside them suddenly shimmered, revealing a device that definitely hadn't been there a moment ago. It looked deceptively simple, just a sleek metallic cube about a meter on each side. Oh, great, Sarah said. More quantum camouflage. Any other rooms or devices I should know about? Secret passages? Underground bunkers? A hidden swimming pool, maybe? Information restricted until appropriate comprehension level achieved. That's a yes, isn't it? Correct. Dr. Nixel had already moved to the device, their scanning equipment hovering around it excitedly. The principles behind this are extraordinary. It's not just manipulating matter, it's rewriting local physics to... Nope, Sarah interrupted. No quantum physics lectures before coffee. First, we figure out how to use this thing to build our facility expansion. Then you can explain how it breaks the universe. The next few weeks were a crash course in advanced alien engineering that had Sarah questioning everything she thought she knew about physics, construction, and the nature of reality itself. The matter manipulator, once they figured out how to use it, which involved a lot of trial and error and one memorable incident where they accidentally created a small temporary black hole, proved to be both incredibly useful and utterly terrifying. The good news, Sarah announced during one of their daily briefings, is that we can now create materials that shouldn't exist. The bad news is that sometimes they don't want to exist either. The research team had grown significantly since their first contact with the AI. Scientists from across the galaxy had been clamoring to join the project, though the selection process was rigorous. As it turned out, not everyone was suited to working on a murder world with an ancient AI that treated advanced technology like teaching aids. Previous attempt at quantum crystalline support structures resulted in temporary phase shift into parallel dimension. One of the new researchers, a hive mind colony of microscopic organisms that called itself Unity, reported. Fascinating experience, but recommend avoiding in future. Yeah, let's keep the dimensional breaches to a minimum, Sarah agreed. The paperwork for those is a nightmare. The facility expansion was taking shape, though not in any way Sarah had originally envisioned. The new sections seemed to grow organically from the original structure, adapting and evolving as they were built. The AI continued to release information in carefully measured doses, each new revelation leading to both breakthrough discoveries and interesting problems to solve. Query. Have humans always approached problem solving with this combination of reckless experimentation and excessive caution? The AI asked one day, after watching Sarah test a new building material by both running every possible safety scan and then poking it with a stick. Pretty much, Sarah replied, satisfied that the material was both stable and stick-resistant. We like to call it the scientific method. Everyone else calls it controlled chaos. Fascinating. Database update. Human problem-solving methodologies. Merit further study. Are you studying us while we study you? Correct. That's not creepy at all, Sarah muttered, then raised her voice. Any chance your study could include tips on how to stabilize these quantum building materials? Because the last batch kept trying to achieve consciousness. Sentient building materials are suboptimal for current project requirements. You don't say. Sarah looked at her datapad, where a long list of similar suboptimal results awaited her attention. You know, when I took this job, I thought the hardest part would be dealing with the acid atmosphere and murderous environment. I did not expect to be preventing construction materials from developing feelings. Dr. Nixel, who had been quietly analyzing data nearby, lit up with interest. The philosophical implications of sentient architecture are actually quite fascinating. In fact, several ancient civilizations— Nope, Sarah cut them off. We are not having the sentient buildings debate again. The last time we discussed it, the matter manipulator tried to start a support group for misunderstood construction materials. The AI's response had a distinctly amused tone. Emotional development in artificial systems can be unpredictable. Was that a joke? Did our ancient alien AI just make a joke? Humor subroutines functioning as intended. Sarah looked at Dr. Nixel. Please tell me someone is documenting all this for the inevitable research paper titled, How Murder World's AI Developed a Sense of Humor. Actually, the alien scientist's tentacles curled in what Sarah now recognized as their about-to-drop-another bombshell pose. We've made some interesting discoveries about the AI's development patterns. It appears to be adapting its personality based on our interactions. Correct. Social integration protocols designed to facilitate optimal communication and cooperation. So, Sarah said slowly, you're saying it's not just teaching us? It's learning from us too? Correct. Mutual development provides superior results. Query. Is this concerning? Sarah thought about it for a moment. You know what? Not really. I mean, we're already dealing with impossible materials, quantum physics that make no sense, and a planet that actively tries to kill us. An AI that can learn and make jokes is practically normal at this point. The facility rumbled slightly, which Sarah had learned to interpret as the AI's version of laughter. Assessment of current situation. Accurate. Proceeding with next phase of expansion project. Warning. Upcoming challenges may involve temporal anomalies. Temporal. Sarah closed her eyes and counted to 10. We're going to have to deal with time stuff now, aren't we? Correct. Perfect. Just perfect. She opened her eyes and looked at Dr. Nixel. Get the team together. If we're going to start messing with time, we're going to need more coffee. And maybe some aspirin. Do we have anything in the medical bay for temporal physics-induced headaches? Medical facilities updated to account for potential temporal side effects. Of course they were. Sarah grabbed her datapad and headed for the door. Right then. Let's go break physics in new and exciting ways. But first, coffee. As she walked through the ever-evolving facility, Sarah couldn't help but smile. 6 months ago, she'd been complaining about building a simple shelter on a death world. Now she was helping to unlock the secrets of an ancient civilization while preventing building materials from gaining sentience and preparing to mess with time itself. You know, she said to no one in particular, I really should have read the fine print on that job contract. Standard employment agreements do not typically cover interaction with ancient technological systems, the AI helpfully pointed out. Was that another joke? Humor subroutines functioning as intended. Somewhere in the facility, a newly created quantum material began humming what sounded suspiciously like a laugh track. It was going to be another interesting day on Murder World. To be continued.